So for the sake of this, I thought what might be helpful is just to go through a really basic plugin that I wrote just to basically query your post list and query individual post details by themselves. So I guess I can just jump into that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Isn't there a presentation mode?
Hit Command Plus.
That works. Is that good for you guys, or do we need to go bigger?
That's good.
Okay. So in the main just declaration file for the plugin, you've got your standard info. The hook that we're going into is called parse request. I actually spent like maybe a full day just kind of looking up the best way to write kind of like an endpoint to just be able to on the fly intercept when someone hits your API URL. I found parse request is the one. If you look up the documentation, there is literally 2 lines saying this is an action hook. So it was really hidden. It took me a while to find it, so I'd recommend to anybody who's interested in this using that hook because then it makes it really easy to, you don't have to do any custom htaccess rewrites or things like that. This is just going to intercept the request as it comes in. So with that said, we basically grab the parameter, the arguments that come in, parse them, check to see if the first value that's in that array matches API, so that's going to be the first part of my endpoint. And then I've got my different, and then I'm going to do some other checks. For this plugin, I just wrote it to only accept GET requests. But when you get into that, you're now talking about setting up authentication through OAuth and stuff like that, and that's to me was a little too much to try to get into for this talk. In my opinion, like authentication is probably the most complex part of this whole process if you're going to go that route. So this plugin is just going to work for us doing basic reads from the database. So I've kind of broken everything out here into as much sensible structure as I can. So I have my exceptions class, which is just going to declare a couple of exceptions. We've got a utility file that's just going to manage when there's errors parsing JSON and give me specific messages and feedback on the errors that might happen there. I've got kind of this main class API call that's going to serve as kind of a reusable wrapper for any of my other calls that I want to build. It's just going to do some basic initialization. My get call is going to extend that API call class and then handle getting the responses and statuses. So I include all those files and then parse any of the arguments that are coming in through the URL call. Nice, just try and catch for determining what endpoint is being hit. So right now I just have defined 2. So there's, let's see, I've got a demo set up here. So this is my demo site that I've got this plugin installed on right now. My endpoint is going to be /API/blog/listing. So that's going to be one that will return my list. When it does that, it instantiates that class and then does all of the querying from there. And then blog detail call, do the same thing. If I send something that is not an actual call, I'm going to get a proper error. Most of the code in here, I think, is probably error handling. It's important. So I'd emphasize doing that. Especially one of the things that I can share with our experience and then integrating this API into a mobile app is it's really hard and painful to deal with undescriptive errors or at least error statuses at the minimum. If you're not getting back good error statuses in your mobile app and knowing what happened to the data, it's really hard to make the app either not crash or just respond properly based on what it was. If it's a 500 error, you might need to retry the call based on whatever it is. You're going to need to do different things. So I would really emphasize putting in the extra 10 minutes writing your exception And that's from a mobile developer perspective, which I've been on both ends of the equation.